The first question is this. Could you please outline the best way to clean and disinfect nail files that are not made out of metal, glass, or fiberglass? I've been told that porous nail files cannot be disinfected, and I know many people who dispose of them after each use, which can get expensive. I bet there are countless nail technicians around the world using these and not understanding what to do. A spray of sanitizer for tools or implements may not be best. What do you think? Well, here's what I think. This is an important topic that I'm glad I was asked because it needs to be discussed. But first you need to understand some background information to understand my answer. So that we're speaking the same language, I have to point out that sanitizers are cleaners that do not disinfect. That's an important point, and this really shows why these words must be used properly. Disinfectants are not sanitizers. Disinfectants are highly effective at killing bacteria and fungi on pre-cleaned surfaces. In this case, the surfaces we're talking about are the parts of the abrasive that touches the client's nail plate. Every country has a department that approves and controls disinfectants and how they're used. In the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, must approve the sale of any disinfectant products, and they must also approve the claims that these products are allowed to make. Interesting. Those claims have to be proven using approved EPA test methods, or the EPA will reject their claims and not allow them to make them. Now, developing a new type of test and getting it approved costs more than $100,000. So rather than do this, most companies take the more cost-effective route and rely on existing test methods. This is what happened with nail files. Several EPA-approved testing protocols already exist for hard surfaces, so there are many disinfectants that are approved for use on hard surfaces in salons. These disinfectants can be used on metal, glass, or fiberglass-backed nail files, and drill bits as well. However, there are no approved tests for porous surfaces that can be used for nail abrasives, and no one wants to pay all that money to develop an approved test for porous nail files because of the cost, and also because the method could be used by anyone. It would offer no competitive advantage at all. So what are the consequences of this? Because there are no approved tests that would apply to porous nail files, and even though porous nail files are likely to be disinfected, no disinfectant is allowed to make this kind of claim. I once chaired a task force for the California Board of Barbering and Cosmetology that looked into the disinfectability of nail files. Our task force research included discussions with the EPA about this issue. They told us that porous nail files could be disinfected, but because there was no protocol approved to the EPA's satisfaction, not only could the EPA registered disinfectants not make this claim, it would be illegal for them to make this claim. And it would be illegal to use an EPA-registered disinfectant in a manner that's not allowed by its label or by the allowed claims. So even the U.S. State Boards of Cosmetology cannot permit EPA-registered disinfectants to be used on porous nail files, even though they would likely work. What our task force recommended to California is this, that they allow a 10% bleach solution or 70% isopropyl alcohol to be used as disinfectants for porous nail files. Why? These were considered disinfectants, effective disinfectants, before there was ever an EPA, so they didn't need EPA registration to be used as a disinfectant. This would allow them to get around this EPA requirement. Now, to make these effective, these disinfectants, I should say, effective, the file would first have to be washed clean to remove all visible signs of debris. Disinfectants don't work well on dirty surfaces. They're designed to work best on pre-cleaned surfaces. Once the file is clean, it can now be completely submerged in the 10% bleach solution, which is 90% water, 10% bleach, or into a 70% isopropyl alcohol solution for 10 minutes. after which the disinfected file should be thoroughly rinsed in clean running water, allowed to dry in a dust-free location, and stored in a clean, dried, covered location that is not sealed. The reason for not sealing is to allow traces of moisture to escape. Wet implements and files are a breeding ground for bacteria and fungi. And the reason for covering them is to keep dust off the files and implements. Bacteria and fungi can't jump, run, or fly, but they can sure get around. How? By touch, of course. We know that they're transferred by touch or direct contact, or using a contaminated nail file, which would be another form of touch. We also know that droplets in a sneeze can carry bacteria as well. But for bacteria and fungi, a dust particle is like a magic carpet. It can take them just about anywhere the air is moving. So dust should be kept off of nail implements and files. Now this also helps explain why it's not wise to file a visibly infected nail plate. Dust can carry large amounts of bacteria and fungi into the air. Normally, inhaling bacteria or fungal organisms isn't a problem, since our bodies have defense mechanisms that deal with these invaders swiftly. However, filing upon an active infection can release a lot of contaminated dust. Active infections, you usually know when they're there, because typically they produce a visible coloration or other changes in appearances within a nail plate, for instance, crumbling into pieces. These kind of nail files should not be serviced, and they should not be filed. Now, if this is done inadvertently, I recommend that the nail file should be sealed in a disposable bag and thrown into the trash. Now, you should know that if a nail file falls apart during the cleaning and disinfection process, it is not a reusable nail file, and it should be disposed of in the trash. It's also very important to know this. Spraying a disinfectant doesn't make it work faster. Most salon disinfectants require 10 minutes to work. Some work in 3 minutes or 5 minutes. None work in seconds. Spraying alcohol or other disinfectants on a nail file does virtually nothing to protect the client. The file must first be washed. Now, if a sprayer is used to deliver the disinfectant, the nail file or other implements must remain wet with the disinfectant solution for the time specified on the disinfectant label, for instance, 10 minutes. So we spray it, it's got to stay wet for 10 minutes to be effective. Now, when in doubt, be sure you are exactly following the label's directions. That's the only way you can be certain that you're using the disinfectant properly. Also, earlier I mentioned drill bits and the list of things to disinfect. Yes, drill bits must be cleaned and disinfected between clients, not just dropped into acetone. Acetone is not a disinfectant.